Welcome to the Saturday Cup of Joe podcast. This podcast is dedicated to EAS employees of the U.S. Postal Service and members of the National Association of Postal Supervisors. So, pour yourself a cup of coffee and join us for today's episode. And now, here's your host, Robert Wakefield.
Good morning, Branch 32, and good morning to our EAS friends across the country. Good morning to you. This podcast is starting to grow a little bit. We've got listeners in New York. We've got listeners in Virginia. We have a listener in California. Of course, we have listeners in Tennessee, and that's all fantastic. Thank you so much for listening to the Saturday Cup of Joe podcast presented by the Nashville Post Office Credit Union. I'm your host, Robert Wakefield, president of Branch 32. Thank you. Thank you, studio audience. It's great to have you all here, so let's go ahead and let's pour that first cup. You gotta love the mission statement for the Nashville Post Office Credit Union. Their commitment to the member is to preserve the financial strength and integrity of the credit union, to ensure your understanding of all the numerous services that they provide, and to also to become your primary financial institution. Visit npocu.org for more information about the Nashville Post Office Credit Union. For our first cup today, I want to talk about the benefits of being in NAPS. And I'll start by telling you my story on how I got into NAPS. I was in the ASP class, the Associate Supervisor program back in 2004. The president of Branch 32 at that time came and spoke to all of the new supervisors, and they passed out the supervisor, the NAPS recruitment packets is what they're called. And it has the application in there. And I looked at that and I said, yeah, this sounds like something that I want to be a part of. So I said, well, what I'll do is I'll fill out the application later. And I did. 2 years later. I put it in a folder and forgot all about it. And then I was invited to a NAPS meeting. Now, I wasn't a member of NAPS, but I was invited to come along and see what it was about. So I went to a Branch 32 meeting, and I realized right then and there that this was something that I wanted to be involved with. So I wanted to talk about the benefits of being in NAPS over the next few podcasts, and I would like for everyone to share this with every non-member that you know, because there are such great benefits in being in this organization, and a lot of people just don't know what we're about. So hopefully the next few podcasts that we do is going to help you understand some of the benefits that you get as being a part of our organization. So the first one that they have in the packet, it talks about advocacy. Now that's a fun word to say, isn't it? Advocacy. I say it 3 times a day, whether I need to or not. Okay, no, I don't, but I should. But what is advocacy? I looked up the actual definition, and the definition is this. It's the act or the process of supporting a cause or a proposal. And, that's what an advocate is. And when I looked that definition up, it's a person who actually promotes the interest of a cause or a group. Now, one of the things that gives NAPS a huge advantage in the advocacy world is that we've been an organization for 116 years. Now, I'm going to tell you something. When you've got that level of experience behind you, when you have that level of talking to people about what you need to get done, that makes an impact. And so there's several different levels. There's all 3 levels that you can find advocacy in NAPS. The first is at the national level. NAPS continues to communicate with our congressional leaders that are about issues that affect us as members. And also, they even advocate for the USPS. It's incredible that we will go to Capitol Hill and we will ask laws to be passed for the benefit of the Postal Service. Because if the Postal Service survives, we survive. It's just that simple. At the national level, we also have Bob Levy, who is the Director of Legislative and Political Affairs. He also has a podcast called Naps Chat. You need to check that out if you can. It's available wherever you get your podcasts. But Bob is up there, and he is in tune with all the legislative things that take place, and so is Chuck Mullador, our Executive Vice President. He is in touch with all that, and they are advocating for different bills and different things to help us as members have a better way of life. And that's pretty important. There's also the legislative training seminar. You know, how many times have we gone to Capitol Hill and we tried to get laws to help the Postal Service and to help NAPS and to help all the members of NAPS? We also have a Supervisor Political Action Committee, or called SPAC. And it's the funds that's taken up that helps get our voices heard on Capitol Hill. We'll talk more about SPAC in future podcasts, I know. So at the national level, you can see where NAPS gives you that advantage, but there's also the advantages of advocacy at the state and local levels. We advocate for our members there as well. I had a situation where a postmaster refused to pay mileage to an EAS employee who was told by his boss, by his postmaster, to go and take any mail that missed dispatch to the plant. So he used his own vehicle, turned in the e-travel requirements that he had to do, and the postmaster refused to pay the mileage. So they called me. And so I called the postmaster, left her a message to call me, never did call me back. I sent an email explaining the situation that was going on. After a week or two, when I did not hear anything from them, I got the state president involved. And the state president notified the district manager. And we didn't get any response from the district manager as well. So then we go up to the next step. We go to the area vice president, and she notified the area. No response. We finally got it to NAPS HQ, who took it to someone at the USPS headquarters. And they got it taken care of. They gave us the ruling of what was supposed to take place. And he eventually got paid for the mileage that he was owed. But what if he had not been a member of NAPS? He would have just had that one avenue. You didn't pay me correctly. And they would have said, yeah, I'm not going to. And that would have been the end of the discussion. But you know, the thing is with NAPS, you have a network of advocates. You have a ton of people that are very knowledgeable that can help you with any situation that you may run into. So having NAPS as an advocate is a tremendously strong reason to join and be a part of this group. So we're going to continue to look at different aspects, different benefits of being in NAPS, and I hope you'll continue to join us here at the Saturday Cup of Joe podcast. But right now, I'm ready for the second cup. Do you know at the Nashville Post Office Credit Union, you can save time and money by applying for a loan online. We strive to be your number one lending source, and you can apply for many of our loans right there off your computer. You can use our electronic signature service to be able to sign your loan documents without ever stepping into our branch. So take advantage of our great loan rates and the convenience of our online loan application. Visit npocu.org. And for our second cup, I want to tell you the story of NAPS member and my good friend, Larry Shropshire. He is the president of Branch 245, the East Tennessee branch. And the reason I'm going to tell this story is because when I'm recording this podcast, it's the week of the Tennessee-Alabama football game. Okay, that's a huge thing down here in the South. Tennessee versus Alabama. I have friends that are Alabama fans, and of course, all the real friends of mine are Tennessee fans. Okay, I'm kidding. It's okay. It's all right. So what I want you to do is when you get a chance, I want you to Google Johnny Majors Bear Bryant and look for an image. And the image that's going to pop up is going to be a picture of Johnny Majors on the left. He's on the shoulders of his victorious team. On the right, you'll see Bear Bryant, the very famous Alabama coach, and they're about to shake hands after the 1982 Tennessee-Alabama football game. But there's this goofy-looking guy with black hair and a mustache in between these two famous heroes of Tennessee and Alabama football. And that guy right there is Larry Shropshire. He photobombed before photobombing was cool. Now, you got to know the story behind this. This is the neatest story I've ever heard. But what happened was Larry was going to meet a blind date. He had a blind date for this game. And so he arrived waiting for her to arrive because she had the tickets. This girl had the tickets to get in to the football game, and they were going out on their very first date ever. It was a blind date. They were set up by, I think, some grandparents or something. I don't remember that part of the story exactly, but they were set up this way. And so Larry was sitting there waiting for the blind date, and guess what? She never showed up. So Larry was mad. He got in his truck, and he was headed back to Johnson City. And, about halfway out of town, he decided, this is Tennessee, Alabama. I am going back to that game. I am going to get in somehow. And he saw this kid on the side of the road, this man on the side of the road holding up a ticket. And Larry rolled down his window and he said, "How much you want for your ticket?" And the man said, $10. "I'll be right back." So he parked the truck, went and bought the ticket from this guy, and headed into Neyland Stadium to watch Tennessee versus Alabama. So when he got to the stadium, he turned the ticket in, and the usher said, "Well, I can't let you in on this ticket." He said, "What do you mean you can't let me in?" He said, "This is for the student section. You're not a student." And he said, "Oh my goodness, I was stood up by my blind date, and I found this guy. He sold me this ticket on the side of the road, and I'm trying to get into the game. I've really worked hard to get here," and all this stuff. And the usher said, "Hey, it's Tennessee, Alabama. Go in there and have a good time." So it turns out that the student section happened to be on the bleachers on the field. So Larry is in the bleachers at the Tennessee-Alabama football game in 1982. Well, Tennessee went on to win the game. They stormed the field. He even gave Johnny Majors a high five in the final few seconds before the game was over. The players lifted Johnny Majors up on their shoulders and was taking him to meet for the handshake with Bear Bryant. Larry was just simply following along and would just say, "Well, maybe I can see Bear Bryant too." And right when those two got together, the picture was snapped by the Knoxville News-Sentinel photographer, and that picture is now one of the most famous pictures of all time in Tennessee history. And there he is, Larry Shropshire, right in the middle of it all. Now, here's the funniest part about the story. Larry didn't know it for several years until after it happened. You remember those Time Life books that they used to send out, and it would be Time Life, 50 years of the Vols or 100 years of the Vols, whatever it was. Well, that picture showed up on the TV screen. And I think it was Larry's dad that said, "Hey, Larry, I think that's you." And Larry said, "That is me." And so sure enough, it was him. He got in touch with Johnny Majors. They became big friends. Every year while Johnny Majors was still alive during the Tennessee-Alabama week, they made contact with each other. He signed a bunch of memorabilia for Larry, and it's just the neatest story. But that right there is the story behind that picture. I'm going to put that picture on napsbranch32.org on our gallery section. So if you don't have a chance to look up that picture, but that is the story of Larry Shropshire and how he photobombed the most important picture of the Tennessee-Alabama rivalry. So thanks for listening to today's Saturday Cup of Joe podcast presented by the Nashville Post Office Credit Union. Now listen, I need your help. Please subscribe and share this podcast with all of your friends, all your EAS friends, non-members. Get this podcast out there. I really need your help. So thanks for doing that. I'm Robert Wakefield. And remember, every great weekend starts with a great cup of Joe. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to the Saturday Cup of Joe podcast. Please note that the views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of Robert Wakefield and do not necessarily reflect the views of the National Association of Postal Supervisors. We welcome your questions and comments, so send those to SaturdayCupofJoe@gmail.com.